Hello, and welcome to the Hotkeys podcast. This is the show where we talk about everything pop culture and random in the world. I'm your host, Mick, and I'm joined by Dave, Jona, Wil, and Landon.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
Hello there.
It is April 11th, 2020. Earth.
The final frontier.
Yeah, we didn't get very far. How's everybody doing?
Good. Feeling fresh. Feeling reinvigorated with life.
Good.
We're still Zooming our podcast, so sorry for the quality, but we're doing our best.
It might be an increase in quality, actually.
Oh, really?
No.
That would have been concerning.
These don't sound good.
Aww.
But that doesn't matter. Like it's our voices.
It's all about the
That's what people
content.
want.
It's the content. They want the raw
That's
content.
right.
So whenever it happened, like the past week or so, we hit our 1-year anniversary for doing the podcast.
Heck yeah.
Yay!
Survived. Woohoo! We're so good. I can't believe we've gone
Nice.
from like 10 subscribers to like 20,000 in just 1 year. It's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, we got a big following.
Landon's Instagram went from like 100 followers to about 1,000.
oh yeah, I know. I'm going crazy.
Still, nobody knows his Instagram.
Dude, Dave can Dave edit this out if I say it now on the Zoom thing, or does he have control over that? Because it's
I have control over everything.
dude, I doubt it.
It's an illusion. It's an illusion. Say it
Landon,
anyway.
it's Dave. Of course he has control.
I don't know why you wouldn't want my Instagram account to succeed. That's what I don't get.
Well, the only thing that makes me feel good in life is putting other people down, because it means that I rise up among them,
Okay.
like above the filth.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm filth.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that being my place on planet Earth.
Hey, filth is
you mean
still
for the
filth.
little bit of time that we all have left here?
Yeah. I'll survive.
Are you trying to segue us into a Corona talk again?
No,
Gosh,
no,
dang it,
never.
Dave.
It just naturally
Don't
goes
bring it
there.
up. Don't bring it up.
Well, what we can't talk about is there's a new episode of Tiger King coming out. Did you say tomorrow or Monday?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out fairly soon, but it's
Fairly
kind of
soon?
just like a series of interviews by Joel McHale, recording or interviewing some of the prominent characters on the show. It's when you learn that it was all fake, that it was actually just a mockumentary. That Will's actually like a really sweet guy, like just like really down to earth, like you just love him like an adorable teddy bear or something.
See, I haven't seen it, the Netflix, but I feel like I was already way ahead of everybody because I listened to the podcast like 2 years ago. They did it's called Joe Exotic, like a Wondery podcast. It was like 15 episodes, and I listened to that like 2 years ago, so I know the whole
I need to
story.
check
now
that out
everyone's
then.
talking about it. I'm like, what? Everyone's freaking out about it?
Is it good?
It's really good.
Okay, I love like short miniseries podcasts and stuff like that. Even if something I already know about, I think would be super fascinating. So, Will, if you don't want to watch the show, you could listen to the podcast instead.
I could, yes.
We'll do neither.
Probably won't.
We'll do neither.
No. Stop.
Well, Will, you've been going on runs. Just listen to it while you're running.
I don't bring my phone with me while I'm running.
You don't listen to anything while you work out?
Nope.
Oh man, I have a hard time working out without listening to anything.
Interesting. Maybe I should
I
try
have a
that.
hard time
I haven't
working out.
That's what I was gonna say.
Fair enough.
Yeah, working out kind of sucks.
It does, but once you get used to it, it really starts to be rewarding because it especially now when it's like we're all trapped into our own like houses. So. Okay, Jonah. All right.
It's
You guys
never
can't see this,
rewarding.
but
Are you doing anything else, Will? Are you doing like any weights, or are you just running for now? Since
no, I'm starting slow. I wanted to start doing some weights or some stuff like that, but I can't really I don't want to take everything all on at once because then I'm just gonna get burnt out. So
well, it's hard too.
starting to
Like
run.
unless you have a good setup for stuff, like you can't go to a gym or anything because they're all closed. So
Right. Yeah.
cardio is all the way outside.
I guess so. A couple
Or
of things I've
treadmill.
been doing is just stuff with that you could do, like push-ups, sit-ups, like planks, squats, that kind of stuff. I've been thinking about doing that stuff, but it's hard because it's even harder to keep track of your own, like, those things every day. I feel like reps of certain numbers are really easier when it's just like, 15 push-ups. It's like you have your own body weight and that's it. I don't know. I feel like it's just harder than just to keep track of workout stuff and just weights, but it might just be me.
We should all challenge each other to do push-ups every day. Like we could keep.
Push-up challenge, Hotkeys push-up challenge.
Yeah.
First to 10 wins.
1.
How far do you run, Will?
So I don't know specific numbers. It's probably around 1.5 to 2 miles is the total distance, but I can't really run the whole way yet. My goal by the end of quarantine is to be able to run all the way. And part of it is a hill, and part of it is downhill, and part of it is uphill. So that's really helpful. I don't want to get too specifics for people that don't know, like, certain areas of where we live and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you said hills and uphill, so they know exactly where you live now.
Are you just
Gotta
Throngs
move.
of fans just showing up outside Will's front door.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't control them. I'm sorry.
Will, what you should do is do a Hal from Malcolm in the Middle and just speed walk.
Speed walk.
Get the suit.
The suit
I need
and
to ride.
everything, yeah.
Oh, dude!
The
I bet
helmet.
I could pick up so many girls with that suit. I guarantee you.
That's
I guarantee you.
They had the last time I went to Ross before everything shut down. They had one of those suits. It was like
Did
a
they have the
lime,
helmet? Did they have
not the helmet, but just like the suit with the. And so I almost bought it to wear around.
How
that.
tight would it have been on you?
Probably pretty tight. 'Cause it was a small.
Oh no! A small.
What was the pattern on it?
It was just completely lime green with like down the sides was black.
Oh, okay.
When I close my eyes, I can see it on you, Jonah.
That's.
I'm not
It's
liking
glorious.
what I'm seeing.
My superhero name would be the Bulge.
Oh, dude. Oh,
What's your
man.
superpower then?
Because
What's
of
your
your
superpower?
because of your biceps, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
What would be your specific superpower? Like,
No,
stop.
Stop.
I'm curious. If he's
What
a
about
superhero,
This
then
is a
what's
family
the
show.
power?
The bulge signal in the sky. What would that look like?
Okay, so what else were we going to talk about this week, Michael?
Who's been taking advantage of Uber Eats and all those delivery services?
Me.
I have not ordered once Uber Eats.
You fool.
Yeah,
I'm
me
always-
neither.
It's pretty great.
I don't trust them to deliver it on time, or I don't trust it to deliver them to deliver it correctly.
That's me.
No,
that's
they're
why
great.
I haven't.
Yeah, they're
done
great.
that.
I've used them twice now, and they're good. Right on time, and you can track where they are, so you can just watch and see if they actually are getting to you on time.
Couldn't like a girl not find you, Landon, for a while or something like that?
Well, yeah, but like 5 minutes, like she just drove around. It's kind of funny. We watch on the app, they're just like driving in circles around. Like, you're just like, oh man, shoot, this sucks for them. Like,
Wow.
well, it's like,
Still,
I can't really do much to help them. Like, you can message them, but it can't be like, oh, you're so close. Like,
Warmer,
Just a little
warmer,
more.
colder.
Can't you like set off a flare or something? Like let them know like
yeah, I don't know.
the
I've had a lot of
LZ is
success
over
with
here.
it. I've had a couple places be really good, and I mean sometimes it shows up a little bit. Like I got a blue cheese sandwich delivered, and I had to heat it up a little bit, but it was still great.
See, if you were to go and just get it because you live literally like 5 minutes away from Brucci's, correct? Like less than 5 minutes, it would be so much hotter and so
No,
much
because I
better.
still have to drive it back to my apartment.
It's like a 5-minute drive though, right?
It's a 5-minute drive compared to how long did it take you to get your food?
I think it would be about a wash because I have to get up, put like appropriate clothes on, and go out and about. Get in my car.
Oh, you don't?
Just wear sweats.
Just a
Or
shirt.
nothing.
Just a shirt and no bottoms. You're not getting out of the car.
Just wear what the Bulge would wear. You're fine.
I don't know. I just think it's like, I get it. It's no delivery fee. There's just the like $2 Uber charge plus like a $2 tip for the driver. Like,
Yeah, but it's $4 more than you would normally pay, and that adds up every single time you order Uber.
Well, you save on gas.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
but
at least
compare
I
the cost
do.
of gas
Landon-
a 5-minute drive.
Landon lives really close to those places. For me, it would be about the same. So for
Yeah.
me, it makes more sense.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't. So how about like a place like Tomato Street, like a local pasta, like a sit down restaurant? I call that in and I just go drive and I sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes. Like, I don't want to do that. It's kind of nice. I just order it and I can go about doing my stuff. And the doorbell rings. I get the food, and it's hot and it's delicious.
Yep.
Here's the
If
thing,
you do it once, you're gonna get hooked.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what happened to me.
It's great, and yeah, it's amazing.
I just don't want to get hooked on that kind of. It's just when the delivery fees start popping back up
Well,
again.
then you just stop. Then because the only reason I'm doing
Oh,
it is
you
because
just stop.
well, yeah, because like the only reason I'm doing it is to like get some nice food on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like I can't go out to restaurants. I'm spending the same amount, if not less, than I would when like all the places were open, with us just going out to eat on the weekends like 2 or 3 times. So I've cut back on how much I'm actually even eating out at restaurants, and I'll never do it when I have an opportunity to go out to eat with friends. It's not like I'm just gonna like on a Saturday, or, you know what I mean?
Everybody, come over. We'll Uber eat.
Yeah, there you go.
Wait a minute,
like-
we've done that before though.
We ordered Chinese food like one time. Like,
Yeah.
And that place isn't really a sit down Chinese place.
yeah,
Fair enough,
it's
fair enough.
mostly delivery takeout.
But-
So
I guess my point is that it saves you like $4 or $5. It's mostly
Will is just like,
Oh,
like
man.
Glitching out
lagging
like
out, man.
crazy.
Did I lag out?
Oh my
You're
gosh.
still-
Yeah,
still
you
lagging.
got a little lag.
Will,
but-
you sound like a dying robot.
Your face hasn't moved either on the video.
You're picking your nose.
You
Are we
sound
back?
like the Bulge sidekick. Robot sidekick.
Are we back? Hello.
Yes.
I think you're back.
Okay. Sorry.
What were you
technical
saying?
difficulties.
What were you saying about saving money or whatever? Like,
You save like $5 every time, all right? And then you also they have to do multiple deliveries in one run, right?
not all the time.
No, not all.
Yeah, but not all the time. But like what I'm trying. All right, I just
It's
don't. I
just
just don't trust
convenient.
them. I
It's
don't
just
trust
Yeah,
like-
it's just convenient.
It's
like,
it's really
it's-
convenient.
kind of. What are you doing instead? Like, what do you have
Not
to really
having to
save time
drive
on?
out there.
yeah, I'm not having to go to the restaurant. Like,
Yeah, but you're doing like nothing instead.
Okay, so
You'd
do you guys
understand-
get
I would
your-
understand if
do
you're
you-
busy.
Do you guys get your groceries delivered too, or?
I do that on the way home from work because I do work at a bunch of grocery stores. So I just shop when I'm like done at my last store.
That's not the question though.
Do you ever shop on company time, Landon?
Wow.
Wow,
Okay. I didn't know we were personally attacking people.
No, I didn't. I just asked the question.
The
I was
answer is
no.
no.
So Mick, I would say a fair amount of us have taken advantage of it. Some of us don't find as much merit in delivering food. I have picked up food a couple times, but for the most part, we're just making food here at home like we normally do.
That's
You
not
suck.
good enough.
Yeah, it's not-
Yeah, I just like how convenient it is.
Well, and like the Tomato Street that we ordered from, like from the time I placed the order to the time the food arrived, like the cooking, delivery time, everything was like 30 minutes tops.
Yeah, mine was like a half hour.
Yeah. So it's like, that's pretty quick. You start your TV show, you get watching it, you're having a good time, knock, you're like, open the door, grab your food, you know, tear it into the house and just devour it. The sick man you are.
Jona, you look like you want to say something.
I mean, we get it. It works for you guys. So like when we ordered Tomato Street, it came in 30 minutes, delicious. Yeah, but what did I do? I mean, okay.
I like how Jonah was saying what I was thinking.
It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, but we have been talking about it for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. I was trying to like move on naturally, but it was not happening. We needed Jonah.
I mean, the
to
best
just,
thing
like,
about
call
it
out.
is like you don't have to go anywhere.
You don't.
Now, do you guys still
Okay.
sign the receipt? Like, do you have to give it back to the guy, and then does it take 5 minutes for them to come back to your front door? And
That's the other great part. It's all done on the app.
Yeah. Super quick.
Convenient.
Are we sponsored?
now, do
Are
you
we
have a
sponsored?
preference between Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash?
Well, I'm under contract with Uber Eats, so I've never tried DoorDash.
You know what? I should start. I think my superpower as the Bulge would be to deliver food, and I could call it Bulge Dash. And then
No.
I think you're going to get a lot of calls from people that don't expect it to be a food delivery service.
Uh-oh.
We're talking the Bulge is the belly. That's what it has to do with the food.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
What were you guys thinking?
I don't know.
Man
Big
boobs.
bulge, little bulge.
Okay, so what else? What other topics do we have today, Michael?
Oh, we can talk about some movie stuff.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Have people been watching good movies?
I've been watching
Yeah,
all
I
TV
watched
shows.
1917. That was a
Oh
great
no.
movie.
Yeah, that is a really good one. I love that
Wonderful
movie.
Wonderful movie.
Yep.
I liked 1917. It was good.
Will, when are you going to watch it?
Hopefully here pretty soon. I was planning to go with Jonah and Dad, but the problem was my dad got sick for a little bit. Then the coronavirus stuff got hit, so I haven't really had the chance, and it's out of theaters definitely at this point. So I'll just watch it at home with my dad. Sometime
We'll
soon.
rent it out. A little digital
Probably either a digital rental or just I don't know. Maybe you should get it shipped from Amazon because it's probably so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or something like that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward. What was that,
People
Joe?
are ready. People are ready
worth-
to pounce. People are ready to pounce.
It's worth owning. I would
Yes.
never watch
Yes.
Parasite again.
You're so.
I own
you're
Parasite.
So I literally bought the Blu-ray.
Who's talking about Parasite?
So good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
We are.
I'm just saying.
Jonah is.
So
Parasite
I
is a phenomenal film.
I watched the Oscars and I was like, I didn't care. And then after I watched both movies, I was completely outraged and angered.
You were
Why?
outraged before you watched
Outraged?
both movies. You were outraged before you'd watched
No.
either movie.
Dude,
No,
you
I
are
didn't.
nitpicking and biased.
You
How's
haven't
that
seen
biased, though?
You haven't
You
seen
haven't seen 1917,
so you can't-
Will. Shut up.
it's a YouTube video quote. Never mind.
I laughed,
just-
Will.
I
Okay,
don't
good.
think Jonah I don't think he wanted it to succeed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jonah
Is
definitely
Jonah
went into
racist? Like-
Jonah went into Parasite wanting to dislike it. That's definitely a known fact. Like,
No,
because you were talking trash on
No.
it before you watched it. You're like, "There's no way it's better than 1917." You hadn't even seen 1917 at that point.
no. What I said, let's go. What I said was that I find it hard to believe that if Parasite would win Best Director, because we're talking about who the favorite was, and a lot of people were saying 1917 was the favorite. What I said was that I find it hard to compare movies when you have a war film or a massive film where it's so much harder to direct something like that as opposed to having people in a house the whole movie and just putting cameras up and doing scenes like that. There's the amount of things that have to go right for you in, like, say 1917 or Dunkirk, because I brought up the Dunkirk as the thing with the weather and having a whole fleet of boats out there in stormy weather and having to get the shots with the right lighting. All that kind of stuff I just think is so hard to give it to a film that's just filmed in a house and it's smaller budget.
Not to
to me is like
mention all.
as a
Not to mention
as a
the
director.
one. Not to mention the one shot thing. I mean, that is huge. I get it that the whole movie isn't an actual one shot, but like their longest take was like over 9 minutes long.
That means they finished the movie quicker, though, right? So it's actually less time working on the film.
No, because all the
I just don't think gimmick films should win Best Picture. I'm just kidding. I just think it. So Dave, you as somebody who has done film and like studied classes like that, do you think it's the same, like the merits of the director for Parasite versus the director for 1917? Do you think it's in the same ballpark? Like for me, I just think one seems way harder and way more difficult than the other one. So to me, when you compare those two, to me, it's like they're completely different films, but I think the difficulty of one is astronomically different than the other. Does that make sense?
I mean, I see where you're coming from. The 1917 does have more spectacle than Parasite by far, but so does a movie like an like a Transformers or something. Like the amount that actually goes into something like a Transformers film regarding like the big grandiose scenes and like pyrotechnics and stuff like that is quite complicated. You don't we're not talking about long takes there. Long takes are something that are much different.
Right.
I mean, I was joking when I was saying like long takes are actually very difficult. They're very I would say
precise.
No,
Precise. Like
they're very impressive. They're very impressive.
Your search for a word and impressive was the word you couldn't find. Like,
yes. They're very impressive. But I also think, though, when you think of a director, the director's primary purpose actually is working with the actors. I know we were talking about Best Picture, but you're also talking about Best Director as well.
Right.
Best Director has much more to do with working with the character work than it does with the overall film. I do think they are not very comparable. I do think it's more like an apples and oranges thing, not like canned peaches and like the best pineapple you've ever had, which I think is maybe more what Jona is trying to say.
Jonah.
I really don't think they're very comparable films. They're very different. They're made very differently. I understand where you're coming from. I understand where everyone is coming from. I personally liked Parasite better than 1917. I don't put a lot of stock, though, in any awards from the Oscars.
Right.
I mean,
I think most of it is all just...
It's all subjective.
Most of it's not... Rigged is not the right word, but most of it's actually just advertising.
Well,
on the part of the film and the production company, and it's just more like word of mouth than it is anything else. So what actually won doesn't matter. What matters is what you like of the films, you know, how much enjoyment you got out of it. And I think for some people, it's also trying to convince others that one movie should be liked more than the other movie by everybody.
Well, for me, the Oscars have always been kind of like, or I guess in the last decades or so, it's become more about maybe political things or like, hey, let's give it to this person who, you know, or like, what's that movie that won about the trans person?
Driving Miss Daisy.
What?
What was it called? Like Midnight, or what was
Moonlight.
the one?
Moonlight.
So like
Beat
those
La La
kind of
Land.
things. I feel like there's certain
Will and La La
things,
Land.
or when Tom Hanks didn't win for Saving Private Ryan, and they gave it to the Roberto Benigni and all, you know. So I feel like
I wasn't on the episode where you talked about that movie. Life is Beautiful is an excellent film.
yes, it's a great film, but
I don't think it's comparable to Saving Private Ryan, but on that episode, Jona was like saying like, oh, it was like a travesty that life is. He made it sound like this dumb movie that was like, oh, it's like this just cutesy movie about like this guy who's trying to save who's trying to like protect his kid from the Holocaust. Like it is a very like it's a very like intense film, and it's about this like this father, like this devoted father who's like trying to like keep the horrors of what happened like from his child, and Jonah like is like, oh, you know, like no, like it's honestly, I think I don't think he said throwaway, but the way he described it was that it was like a throwaway film that no one even thinks of or likes. And like it was one of those films that, like when I saw it, I was like, this is like one of those films that like sticks with you. So does Saving Private Ryan in a very different way. But
have any of you guys, other than Dave and myself, seen that movie?
No,
probably not.
I would like to watch it though.
So but I said about the actor. Tom Hanks' performance in Saving Private Ryan was way better than the actor.
I don't think you can compare it. I really don't think you can.
When you're giving Oscars, you have to compare.
The fact is that they're both nominated for the best actor role. Same with the best picture with 1917 and Parasite. That's how you compare them, because they're both up for the same award.
I think inherently that is dumb. I think trying to classify something like in a year that's like this is the best actor out of the whole year is it's like a folly. But we can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. It's something people like to rate things that really aren't that comparable.
I know it's stupid that it's done, but because they put them up against each other, you can't help but compare. It's like,
I also could say like I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other, or that because I'm not saying that Parasite is a better film than 1917. I just liked it better than
that
1917.
means you think it's a better movie.
No, that is not what that means at all. That's not what that means.
You can like a film without it being a good movie.
I can look at like a super realistic painting that's like almost that looks like a picture that you know that old people would consider like, in order for it to be art, it has to look about as close to real life as possible.
But that's the thing. That's the thing about it, though. It's subjective. It's all subjective. So the fact that you're saying
that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's the thing. So I'm going to take your example. When I'm going to look at best,
I didn't even get to finish my example because Michael interrupted
me. Hold on a second. So I think what Dave is trying to say is there's two different subjective views that you can have. You can have how much you like a film and how good you think a film is. They don't necessarily need to line up.
Okay, but here's the thing. When we're talking about best movie, best picture, what I'm going to do when I'm comparing a best picture, if I have two movies, I'm going to take into account not just which one I liked better, but for me, which one is more difficult to do and which one is harder to pull off. And could they pull it off when it was way harder? For the same example with the painting. Okay, so you can have a Renaissance painting where the detail is amazing. It takes the guy 10 years to paint, and then an abstract artist or a modern artist today that paints triangles and says, oh, here's your interpretation, and you put the two up there, you can say, oh, well, one was way harder to do, whereas the other one was just kind of like, my feeling. And you always have to compare those things. I think 1917, for me, and if I'm going to compare movies, is I'm going to say that one was way better shot. That one was harder to pull off. That one was done beautifully. Parasite had a good story, but at the end of the day, nothing shocked me about it. And I was telling Mick, there's only one shot in that movie that I was like, oh, that was a really cool shot. And that was when they go downstairs and the old nanny's like trying to push open the door. Like the way it's shot, where it comes down and you just see it there, it's so unnatural that I was like, that it was memorable. There was nothing else in that movie that I was like, oh, that's a memorable shot. Whereas 1917, that whole movie was incredibly memorable and completely more difficult to do, with the explosions going off, with the long shots taking place. To me, it was just not even close.
I think not to mention when you put into account a best picture, you have to look at the whole movie. So like the score for the film, like the score for the film of Parasite, I don't remember that at all. It was one of those soundtracks. It was just, you don't really notice it, but 1917 had the soundtrack where it was like a part of the film. It was a character. It brought out the emotion of what was happening on screen really well. Like I don't want to spoil it because Will hasn't seen it, but there's a shot where there's flares going over at a night scene.
Oh, brilliant.
Beautiful scene.
I don't know. I think
if I'm going to be honest, I think Captain Marvel should have won Best Picture in 2019.
I think you just have to like the movies you're gonna like what Dave was saying. Like, I've enjoyed both films just about the same amount, and the fact, like, the only reason anybody's even in an uproar about it is because a bunch of rich people decided that one was better than the other. Like, so you're just playing the game at that point, getting enraged about it. Like, you can just
I can be enraged if I want to.
I know I'm saying, but like
taking the high ground. Like,
no, I'm just saying, like, you guys are all bent out of shape over it when, like, you can just enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I'm not over here going like, the Academy said Parasite was a better picture, so you guys are wrong because
I know that. No,
trash.
I know that 1917 is a better picture. That's not a question.
For me, it's hard. For me, it's hard because I think Parasite's really well done and kind of like genius, but. And so for some friends, it's like, oh, like they're trash on it. For me, I get caught up in like, oh, I want to make them see why I think it's so good.
Well,
but
Jona did go into the film wanting to hate it, though. That is a valid statement.
No, that's not true.
What did I miss?
That's not true.
What is genius? What is genius about Parasite? Because I thought Snowpiercer was way better than Parasite and way more complicated to do. And so what
do you mean complicated? And also, what do you mean memorable? I don't understand what those words mean.
Can we talk about Snowpiercer? Because that's a movie I've wanted to see for years, and I just have not gotten around to seeing it. Like,
I haven't seen Snowpiercer either.
I like that way better than Parasite.
Okay, so can you talk about it without comparing it to Parasite? Just
like, why? Probably because it has an action plot or something. Like,
no, because to me there's more going on in it, and I feel like. In Parasite, I feel like I'd seen that before. That's why I don't understand when people say, "Oh, it's so genius." I don't understand what's genius about it. Like,
I didn't
to
feel
me,
like
it was
I'd seen
generic.
a movie like it before.
But in what sense? Because his movies are all the same. They're all about the poor being pushed down by the people that are above them, and it's the same themes. His movies are all about that. So to me, it's like I've seen this theme over and over again. Well, you watch his older movies; they're the same theme. So I feel like he's making the same movies with the same themes. I didn't see what was genius about it. Oh, there was someone living in the basement. What's genius about it? I don't understand.
And I don't think you. I don't know. I have a hard time even I don't know.
Will said it was.
Yeah,
Will said it was genius. So I want to know what's genius about it.
It really dives deep for me into philosophy and really the politics between how families interact, and also kind of like the state of how someone perceives another person. A lot of the philosophy behind rich versus poor, and what their kind of base values are, and if certain things are justified or not. It kind of plays with all these themes and doesn't give an exact answer to it. I had a great conversation with my dad about the whole entire film, and we were almost not arguing but debating on if it was justified for certain for these certain
Landon, is
characters.
That your child in the background?
Yep, that's mine in the downstairs neighbor's kid.
No.
Oh, he froze. I broke him.
What were you saying? Well, I really wanted to. Oh, I think he did freeze up.
Yeah,
he's
been having some connection issues the last.
What Will was saying, I would kind of agree with, though. There's it presents a lot of interesting philosophical points, and it kind of just leaves it up to you to kind of interpret what you want to take away from the film.
My point for that would be, I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was, but when someone doesn't give you the answers, it's lazy.
No,
because
wrong.
What?
Wrong.
No.
Wrong.
What?
Oh my! You're so wrong. You're so incredibly wrong.
I'm like, maybe someone said that.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
There's an element where I can go out to you and say, man, there's these characters, because every single character in Parasite, you don't like any of the characters.
I liked most of
and
them.
Then,
no, I liked a lot of them.
You're not rooting for anybody in that movie.
I'm not rooting for them.
Then,
you can like a character without rooting for them.
So what happens is they present this whole thing, and then they're like, I can just imagine them there being like, okay, let's set this whole thing up, and then, so what are we going to end this? What's to be the message at the end? Well, we'll just let the audience decide what message they want to take from it. That to me
that's not what's going on.
That's not what's going on. You're not taking that final step to put something out there that says, this is my stance on what I think it should be. They went to the whole point, and then when they're going to the point where they're making the dad, you know, he smells, and then you're like, okay, this guy's they're making a point about these people, their desire for wealth and to be there overran everything else, that they became murderers. They go to that point, and then they do this whole thing where now the son is having this like fantasy about like buying the house and getting his dad out and all this stuff. To me, then that becomes like a cop-out. You decided to not go and say that was wrong. You just decided to be like, well, it's up to your decision whether it's right or not. To me, that's lazy to not go that final step because they couldn't do it.
I strongly disagree with you.
I strongly disagree.
Okay, hold on. Stop. We have like a minute left. Dave, do we want to stop it here or do you want to keep going?
Let's take a short break and then
Okay. Because I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we'll be back after this break.
After the short message.
Hello and welcome back to the Hotkeys podcast. We just took a short break and now we're back to argue more about movies.
Yay!
Ooh, can't wait to hear how my opinion sucks.
I don't remember where we left off.
Jonah just made
Jonah was
very...
Jonah was saying that it was lazy to not completely deliver your message to your film.
Spoon-fed. He
like,
wants
like,
this
like
ending
watching some kids
spoon-fed to him.
movie.
I had them on the ropes, and Mickey was about to throw in the towel for them, and then the bell went went back to their corners. That's a Rocky reference, Will.
Oh, Will froze again.
I'm just
dang it. Will's internet sucks.
Will's just scared to argue his statement.
Will's internet.
I don't know. If I know anyone who's like willing to argue about something, it's gonna be Will. So like,
sorry. I've been cutting out. My internet's being a little weird today.
Jonah has an inside man in your house. See that he's unplugged. That someone is unplugging your Ethernet cord from the router over and over again, the modem, and then plugging it back in.
Oh, really? Well,
is that an Anakin poster behind you?
That is, yes. It says, "I hate sand."
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite posters.
All right. Well, I don't know who was talking.
I'm just waiting for someone to shoot first. Like
Jonah.
So Jonah likes all his movies to be very formulaic and like everything delivered.
Yeah. Like he likes children's movies,
that's
right?
not what
just
I
like
said.
to give the message right away, so you don't have to even think about it, right?
That's not
what
I said.
How do you like Trolls World Tour?
Nah, Trolls. The first Trolls was a bit better. Hey, there's nothing wrong with liking all kinds of movies. I mean, you like La La Land, so I'm not arguing about that.
We're just insulting each other at this point. Like,
yeah, we need to make sure this doesn't devolve. But
what I said was,
but it might. So
what I said was, I never said that I want the everything spelled out for me. What I said is, when you get to a point where you don't take that final step, where you take a stand on what is your point of the movie, and you just say, let's just leave it up to other people. The filmmakers have an idea for why they're making a movie. Like, if he didn't have an idea for what he's trying to say in that movie, he wouldn't have made it. He has a point of view. So give us that point of view. If you're making that film, don't just get to a point where you can make your statement and then be like, yeah, let's not do it. Let's just leave it open and for so people can make their own interpretation. That to
I don't
me feels like take that final step.
I don't want to be that guy, but I think movies that like explicitly state or like very clear with what their message is, I don't think a film is the right medium for them. I think it should be like a paper or something or an article. A film, I really don't think should be doing
film
that.
Is art.
Wait,
Film
why?
is art.
Oh, Will. Gosh,
His face.
this is bumming me out, Will.
But
you're like our star quarterback, and you're like,
your whole
He's
point,
choking. You can't do it.
Will's whole point is going to be a film is art, and so it must be subjective. Which, yes, a film, art has different things, but art has a message. So I write a song, I have a certain message that I wrote that song for. That's art. Someone paints a picture, they have a certain message that they want people to get, and that in that thing, other people can take other things from it. That's how art works. That it's multiple things can come out of it. But there has to be in art there is a message, a reason for someone to make art. And so if you get to a point where then you're just like, let's just leave it open-ended, let's not go out on a ledge and take a stance, then to me it's like, what's the point? You're just being like, take what you want from it, which people are going to take what they want anyways. But I feel like in Parasite, it was this whole thing of who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. I don't know. Depends on rich people take the side of the rich people, poor people take the side of the poor people.
See, it's funny you say that because I think my opinion is almost the exact opposite. I think it's the responsibility of the people that are interpreting the art to do that interpreting. I think it's almost lazy the other way around, because when you explicitly state your message or your theme, then there's nothing for the person who is consuming the art to process as much. It's almost an exact opposite of what you were saying. I think it's funny that like you use the word lazy. I think it puts more work on the part of the artist, but then I think it almost defeats the purpose of part of the art in itself.
Yeah, there's a reason that like almost all Christian movies are pretty terrible. It's because the whole purpose of the film is just to convey that the spiritual theme to it.
There's a lot of other reasons why those movies are terrible.
I know, but
there's tons of reasons.
The biggest is acting. I mean, I know we're not like
acting
is like
design, direction, cinematography.
I can only imagine.
That one was it was okay. Way better than Parasite.
Oh, come on!
I did like it better than Parasite.
Oh no!
I'm probably explaining this wrong, because I'm not saying spell it out for me what you want, right? I'm not saying, because you guys know I love movies that you can get your own things out of it, and
because for example,
like Unbroken, right?
Unbreakable.
There you go.
And
I don't even know the movie.
Superman.
Like a good example is Inception. Inception ends on kind of a cliffhanger where you're kind of up, it's like up to you to determine what happened.
Well, that's different than like the
different
theme of the film. There's a difference between like ambiguous ending versus like ambiguous overarching theme or something. But I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
I'm still waiting for what was so mind blowing and genius about Parasite. I still haven't gotten that answer.
I think the way that I like philosophy a lot. I'm actually a philosophy major, so the way that it incorporates.
Will, no. Will has so much to say, and he can't even say it. He's frozen.
I'm so mad right now on my internet.
I'm gonna have to turn this into this is gonna become a video podcast, so that we can just see Will's
frozen
and stuff. I'm not releasing this on video. I was joking. This is staying audio. We want less of us, not more of us.
Yeah, we don't want more of Captain Bulge.
Wait, he's a captain now?
I don't know. I think Captain Bulge, like Mr. Bulge.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bulge is more humble. You know, the common man's hero.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think I like the movie because like there's the themes playing, like the whole rich versus poor, but like you never know who to really root for. No one's really good or bad. They're just, you kind of experience like a slice in these people's lives of this family trying to escape the position they're in, and just the conflict between the two people and just how things escalate. And I liked the blend of humor and just like the black comedy of it, where it's just really messed up, but also hilarious at the same time.
Did you, so honest question, because when I watched it, I didn't like any of the poor people. Like for me, everything they were doing, listen, everything they were doing was wrong. Everything they were doing was wrong. And so to me, I was like,
wrong according to your ideology.
Correct. They were conning their way into a richer person's house.
They were trying to make a living. They were trying to survive. They were trying
here's the thing.
You're correct, doing something illegal and immoral.
And so anytime someone's doing something illegal or immoral in a movie, then they are the bad guys.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, what things did they do that redeemed them in any way? Nothing. Like they forged the documents. Okay, not a big deal, whatever. But then they almost killed a woman by using the allergies. They're doing all this stuff to kind of manipulate, get rid of her, and she's a poor person as well. Like she needs that job. So to me, like it just kept upping the ante of there's nothing redeemable about them. Like even the guy like starting to make out with the student and stuff like that. It's like his friend said that he wanted to be with her, so he knew he could trust him. Right off the bat, he can't trust him. Like nothing they do is of redeemable where you're rooting for them. And then to make it that the dad becomes a murderer because he smells bad, because they're like
that's a gross it's not.
That's a gross misunderstanding.
Yeah,
gross.
Yeah, like
disgusting.
No,
it's not the name that matters. It's not the fact that the name is Martha. It's the fact that it's the mother. That's what's important.
Snap! Guys, you guys fell right into my hands because I was going to make that same argument. Because I'm making a comment about the way they shot it was the smell. The mom, the lady covering her nose when he's driving her, and then at the end, the smell of the person that was attacking. That's the scene that makes the dad go shut off and become a murderer. So I'm saying it's simpler, but they're using that as the vision of what made him crack. So to me, I'm saying that's how they filmed it. That's what makes him crack, is where he becomes a murderer. So to me, everything that the poor people did, there was nothing of value that they did. And then at the end, to have them be like, the only girl that to me seemed like she didn't do as much bad things is the one that they killed. Right, the sister gets killed, and she seemed to be the more like decent
she was
one.
Really conniving. She was really conniving.
No, she was equally as bad. She completely BS'd all of her stuff. She helped his brother.
He's saying though the least.
She did the least thing terrible out of all of them, and she's the one that gets killed. Like, and then
the mom was not as bad as the husband or the son as well.
The mom was the worst. The mom was like always the one that was like drunk, that was always taking advantage of things. The mom was one of the worst ones, and then the dad becoming the murderer was, of course, him killing is the worst. But then the son too. Like, there's none of them do anything redeemable that you want to root for them. And then it was just like, okay,
they all get what they deserve, though, right?
Not really.
How would they not get what
I
they
don't
deserve?
know.
What do you think
The
they
son
deserve?
got like his brains like bashed in. It was like
Right, but
he got his brains bashed in.
he ended up being okay.
I mean, I don't know. If
I don't
he's
think he's okay. I mean,
I
No,
don't think he's okay.
watch the ending of the
Crazy.
movie again. Watch the ending of the movie
No.
again.
He's crazy. He's crazy, but he does this whole thing where he has this fantasy about making money again. And
The
so
mother's
he's still
family
alive,
is
able to do the same thing.
the mother's family torn apart.
Yeah, the family
The
gets.
daughter is dead.
Yeah, but what's the difference? Because their life was so miserable before, so they did this whole thing to get out of that. They're stuck right back into it. The whole point is, what I'm saying is, where's the message? Because the son, his whole idea now is, I'm going to get ahead
the
again.
messages don't start out as a poor person because you can't
Yeah.
climb out. Even when you do things wrong, you're stuck there and it probably just gets worse. So it's be born into a privileged lifestyle because otherwise you're probably not going to get out of it.
But not even
That's part of
because,
I mean, I'm joking, but I'm also kind of not joking.
right, but
Yeah.
it's not even that because you have a privileged life. So then it's like, if you're born into a privileged life, and not necessarily born into a privileged life, because they make a point to point out that he's worked for what he's gotten. Like, they make a point to say the dad is like done all these things and he's worked hard to get there and all this stuff. But so the point is, okay, be careful if you're a rich person, because you might have poor
get
people
murdered
want
by
to
a
kill
crazy
you.
family of poor people.
So that to me is where I'm like, what is so genius about this? Like, you're not giving me a message. You're giving me a message.
I don't have to have a
poor
message.
people.
Like, I guess I don't have to like fully be able to fully empathize or like sympathize with like, you know, like I don't have to like be like, oh, these are the clear moral characters to back throughout the story. I'm fine just watching a group of people interact with each other without like clear cut morals or like.
But isn't that a point of a story, is to have characters that you can get behind and relate to and that you root for? Like,
I think there's certain relation.
doing?
It's not one-to-one relation at all. That's for sure. But there's certain aspects I think of almost every single character that you can relate to in this movie. I mean, in pretty much any movie, but I mean, in this one, it's I would say just as relatable.
I would agree if you could hear me.
To me, it becomes like Game of Thrones, whereas bad things happen. You like every time there's a positive character, he ends up getting killed. Where the author is kind of throwing stuff out there just to shock, and you the world it's in, you're just like, man, what characters can I grab a hold of? As opposed to something like Lord of the Rings Tolkien, where there's certain characters that Sam is, for me, the best character in Lord of the Rings, because there's something you can get behind and that instills value, whereas everything in Parasite to me is like, what do I grab onto? What do I hold onto?
So do you just you like prefer like happier type stories with like easier to find characters or like
I love sad stuff, but I feel like there needs to be something there that you hold on to that pushes the message of what makes us better. And to me, Parasite was just like, this is the rich versus the poor, and we're all screwed. If you're rich, you're in battle with the poor. And to me, I was just like, what's the point of this message, where I've seen movies like this before with this message of the rich versus the poor, the poor trying to get up.
But also the poor judge the poor in that film too. I think it's about people judging other people
100%.
based on economic. There's the part in the basement when they find the dude in the basement, and the dad's talking to the guy that's been living in the basement for a couple of years, and he's judging him. He's like, how could you live down here? How could you like stay down here? And the guy basically compares, he's like, oh, it's just like living in a basement in the city to like, but you get used to like your economic standing, and anything below you or above you is like, you know, worse for some reason. You get caught in your bubble of where you are.
Yeah, and
it's like the platform.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what that movie was.
We have another movie. It's funny that like Jonah did not like that movie as well.
Is that the Spanish one?
Yeah,
the Spanish one where they go to 333
platform.
Yeah.
9 3/4
levels.
Yeah, that it made me sick to my stomach. But I mean, again,
Game of Thrones, like I find the characters relatable in that I've read all the books and watched the whole show, and like I love most of the characters. They all have flaws, and they're all like, you know, like, oh, this person does bad things here, but there's admirable and, you know, courageous things they do later, and they have redemption arcs. They feel like real people.
For me, no, I find a lot of my own characteristics like spread throughout all the different characters. You know, my flaws are kind of mirrored in a lot of other people's flaws. Like there have been times where I've like, this is going to seem minor, but I've liked the same girl that one of my friends has liked, and I've felt bad. And I think that
you need to feel bad. You need to step over your friends and win, Will.
Yeah.
No, I think the important part was I felt when I knew what Kevin was doing was wrong when he started. It's interesting how he turned into the person that was like, oh, I'm going to marry her. The same exact person that was his friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he seemed to have no he seems to have no regard for what his friend thought. And I've felt like doing that before. I've had thoughts of doing that before. I think I've done that before. Like it's not a good situation for yourself to be in, and you already know the consequences. You yourself has experienced the consequences. So for me, it's like I sympathize with either the dad that's looking down on him or the poor people that's looking down on the other poor people.
Man.
Okay. Well, we got a little more.
And I just don't understand how you don't. Okay, I understand. I don't understand how you don't sympathize. Sorry. Did I get through clearly?
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand sympathizing and understanding their plight, but there comes a point where you then want to sympathize. They never give you a chance to sympathize to the point where you're rooting for them, because early on they start doing really shady things, and you're like, they paint the rich people as these people actually aren't very bad at all. Like they do this silly thing where when they're under the table and the parents start doing it, where she talks about get me drugs, right? I want some drugs, right? So then that's kind of like the thing, like, oh, see, they've got their little issues too.
I don't think that's what that was. I think that was
but
I think that was like like fantasy almost.
Yeah,
like
that was definitely fantasy,
I don't think that was them trying to like see these people are bad too. Also, I think like
but what I'm saying is that was just like thrown in there really quick, and the poor people the whole time, you can never sympathize with them fully because they're rotten people, and that to me is the problem. Like, where am I supposed to put my enjoyment, or who am I rooting for in this? Because to me, there was nothing of value in the poor at first when you're seeing where they're living. But like I said, early on, they just start doing things that you're like, that's not right. Like, what? Why are they doing that? And then when they kick the other poor person out that has her job legitimately, and they start conniving to do that, to me at that point, which is pretty early on in the movie when they start doing that, I was like, okay, well, so who am I supposed to be rooting for in this situation? You know what I'm saying?
You don't have to root for anybody. You don't have to root for anybody.
You just watch it. You experience the movie.
I think what it really comes down to is that it's just not your kind of movie. And that's I'm not saying that I'm not saying that you're not like you're stupid because you can't see what we see in the movie, but it's just not your kind of there are like ideologies in film, and there's like a dominant ideology, and then there's a submersive ideology, and oftentimes what people identify with is that dominant ideology in film. And if there's things that don't mesh with that, what they see is a film that either they classify as not good or something that they don't like, or a mixture of the two. And you can like both types of you can appreciate of a movie or a TV show or any other type of thing that subverts an ideology. I don't like using the word subvert in film because it makes me think of Star Wars. But before Star Wars Episode 8 came out, when I thought of subversive films, it was about subverting the dominant ideology in film. And there's many films that do that, and I think some people just don't like that. The first person that comes to my mind is my father. He does not like movies where you subvert a dominant ideology that's present in our American society. And if that's subverted enough, then it's not a film that he would like. It's not a film that he would classify as something that would be a good film.
Do you have examples of that?
He wouldn't like Parasite, right?
I mean, Parasite would be one, definitely. Probably something like anything that would be probably classified as like a dark comedy, or anything that's satire. In Bruges, I think would be one that he would not appreciate.
Probably Three Billboards.
That's a really dark movie. Yeah, probably a lot of Coen Brothers movies. Something like Fargo. Probably not. Maybe like The Big Lebowski. The Big Lebowski is a little bit different. That's not really subverting ideology. That's just kind of a.
So here's the thing, because I understand that aspect of it, but there are movies that are weird or that don't have a great happy ending, or don't make you feel good. For example, Wind River. Haven't you seen Wind River?
I haven't yet. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
So Wind River, I won't spoil it, but Wind River is like one of those movies that doesn't make you feel good. It's depressing. The way it's shot, like you feel cold watching the movie, just how it's shot. It has great acting in it. And it's one of those movies where you don't feel good at the end of it, because like there might be one character that you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, but everyone else is kind of similar, like, oh man, what's the deal with this? But that's a movie I was like, man, this is a great movie. But again, I felt like that there's clear message in that movie of how we treat women. Like that was a main thing in that movie. That's just right there. They're making a point and they're going for it. And again, this movie, as much as people say it was genius, to me, it's like, I've seen this class battle before, rich and poor, that to me, for example, I thought, and Will, you're going to hate this, but for me, I find it interesting that Joker did a similar thing with class and the rich and the poor and a person's descent into madness. And to me, I felt that was a better done movie and more impressively filmed than Parasite.
I think Will probably liked I think Will probably appreciated the character more in Parasite because it was much more nuanced than in Joker. That's just going to be my guess.
Yeah, so I really like the characters in Parasite, and I think it's a lot more of I think it's a lot better done in the terms of it goes deeper. I think way deeper than what Joker does. I think Joker's very surface level.
I think that's one thing we talked about too when Joker came out, is we all agreed it was fairly surface level when it came to like what was good and what was bad. So
because one of my favorite things about Parasite is it makes you question what the rich people did wrong and what the rich people did right, and like what they did necessarily that was bad. Because I know there's not a clear answer on that, and a lot of people have different opinions on that, which is really interesting to me.
Joker does a similar thing with Thomas Wayne. To me, it's like, what's one, when you guys say, oh, it was surface level, when in your original review of it on the podcast, Will had mentioned that it blamed it all on society, and that's not what the movie did. That was just his it just blamed it on society and said, that's not really what the movie's talking about. It's talking about like how many of these people are out there that keep getting pushed down, not only by society, but by like, what is our responsibility as people to reach out to the people that are out. No, because it was, Will had said that it was about like government programs and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, it went on a level of how are we reaching out to people that are less fortunate, that maybe are weird. It talks a lot about abuse. There's elements in there that talk about pornography and how sexualizing people can affect people. Like there's those things in that movie that you can pull out of that movie that I think are deep, but it's kind of dismissed as, oh, it was just the Joker. To me, there were deeper things in the Joker than there were in Parasite. Parasite to me was like, these people are so poor that they're trying to do anything necessary to get out. But again, where do you find the silver lining in it? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like
Joker says these things are wrong and puts them right in front of your face. And Parasite, I think, does the opposite, where it kind of blurs the lines. Okay, what is right and wrong, and what do you think the mistakes of each? How did we end up here, and what the situation was in the end? And I think that it has more value to me because I like it when people question what's right and wrong, rather than this is wrong.
Joker's like, oh, bad thing happens to Joker. Joker does something worse, like in like the escalation, like, oh, he just keeps acting on, people that treat him poorly with like violence due to his mental health deteriorating.
Well, there's more to it as in like someone with mental issues, and it talks about a man's need for a father, which I thought was really strong in the Joker, was a man's need for male affection. There's a lot of scenes in that movie that are hitting that across, which I think you don't find a lot in movies. The aspect with that Will said with it blurs the lines between what's good and bad and what's acceptable in Parasite. I didn't see that because to me early on, it was like what they're doing is wrong. Like it's
Correct.
Not blurred lines.
What the poor people did was wrong. Now, what did the rich people do wrong?
That's what I'm saying. They didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and certain people would disagree with you.
Yeah, there's definitely people that are.
What I'm saying is that right, but someone smells bad. If someone smells bad in the car, right, then you're like, oh, the rich people shouldn't have reacted to the man's smell. Like what other things did they do that were that bad?
They kept like right? There's a moment before everything breaks loose at the birthday party when the two fathers are behind the bushes dressed up in the Indian headdresses and stuff,
Native American.
The kid. Native American. Okay. And there's a moment where the poor father is like kind of, talking to the rich father, like trying to have like a more like not employer and employee kind of conversation and having more of a like just man-to-man conversation. And the rich father just kind of shuts it down and says, you're being paid,
he says,
extra.
He says
yeah, like that you're getting paid. Right. You're getting paid for this.
The rich people are viewing the poor as commodities. And that's part of what they do wrong, but somewhat, and not only do part of what maybe they're doing wrong, and another part is that they kind of think that possibly that like they're trashy or that they smell bad, and that is possibly justified because. And
it's not just the smelling bad that triggers that. There's buildup throughout the entire film.
Yeah, right. Jonah, do you remember the first thing that the poor people do when they enter the rich person's house?
Tell us, Will.
Which,
like, so the first thing that when they get home alone is they trash the place.
Yep. Yeah. They get drunk
and they drunk. They get completely trash the place. And I don't think the rich people would do that. Yeah, at that point, the first thing they do is just trash everything, leave everything. Like there's broken bottles all over the table. They have a tough time cleaning it up, and I think that's a testament to.
He reads her diary. He does all that stuff.
She eats dog food.
All that stuff. It says something about certain behaviors that these people have.
Man, I want to watch the movie again. Talking about it.
We just watched it again last night.
It's so good.
So
yeah.
But that's what my whole point. The rich people, the father does start talking and getting too personal with certain things. That's a cultural thing in Korea about like know your place. Like you can't do certain things.
Right.
So to
me,
so
that's an argument for why they're justified. Why?
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. The rich people never do anything wrong. Like the biggest thing is he shuts down the dad, and then he says, "Man, you do smell like your hygiene's pretty bad." they mentioned that over and over again, and the hygiene keeps coming back. And so to me, it's like, okay, that was the thing that's why I'm saying you can't root for the poor people. It just seems to me like there was no real balance of who am I rooting for.
I must be like scummy or something, because I found it not that hard to root.
Oh, I was rooting for them for most of the film. I was rooting for them.
Family,
There's something about a group of people trying to band together to escape their like social status, like, you know, like, I mean,
and not just a social status, but like one of the one of like the bottom of the social status. Like they weren't like, they were like living like in like the worst part of town, like and then, like,
almost killing a woman with her allergies.
What's interesting is that
they do kill her.
They kill her.
I know, but
they have a very different view of how I interpreted the film. Dave and Landon have a very different view of how I interpreted the film. I did not root once for the
and I'm not rooting for them the whole way through. There's definitely a turning point. There's a point in that film where that movie turns from a comedy to just a borderline a horror film. You know what I mean? Like, so there's definitely a tone shift like in it. Like,
if that was a comedy, it's one of the worst comedies. I laughed once watching that movie.
See, but that you don't.
I
thought that movie was hilarious. I thought that movie was hilarious. Baby.
Okay, because I want to go off with what Landon said, and actually we only have about a minute left, so we
keep going. We start.
No, we can just going. We might just need to like.
It's time to shut this down.
Like I went into the movie not knowing much about it, and I think it does help to do that, because the first half of the movie, like if you ended it like at halfway point, it is like a straight up comedy. Like Jona may have not found it funny. I found the first half of the movie funny. I think part of what makes the movie work so well is that it does have such a dynamic shift in the middle. I think maybe what Jona might be doing is visualizing the entire film with one tone, where there's a shift in it that is very important and crucial to how you see the characters as well. Because you kind of have this, the first half of the film very it's a comedy, like Landon said. And you take the same characters and you put them into this new film that now is very, very different, which is the second half of the story.
The stakes have been risen.
Yeah, they're completely different stakes now.
Yeah.
But
I understand two classifications, but to me, there was nothing comedy about it. I would have taken more the first part as a drama, and then the second half becomes more of a horror movie suspense thriller. Because to me, it didn't seem like a comedy.
Okay,
it's a family like infiltrating another family.
Like hilarious.
And they slowly pick off people to take their roles. Like that is funny. Like it's not funny in real life, but it's a movie. Like it's a dark comedy.
Okay, we have to end it. We have to end it.
Okay, yeah, we need it.
I don't find it that funny. Anyway, okay, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, CastBox, YouTube, and other podcasting platforms. Visit our website at www.hotkeyspodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Hotkeys Podcast, and join our Facebook group at HK Hotkeys. Please like, review us, subscribe on whichever platforms you use, and you can contact us at the email address hosts@hotkeyspodcast.com.